This morning we thought about hope, and hope's a strange word, isn't it, really? I thought it might be worth exploring a bit more what we actually mean by hope. We can have naive hopes. We can hope that we might be a millionaire, which is really just a wish. We have expectations as well. The English language is rich in different words around hope. And I also thought, what sort of things do we hope for? I made a list. I thought, well, we hope things will be okay. We hope we will be okay. We hope scientists will sort this out. We hope that our politicians and our leaders are making the right decisions. We hope we won't catch the virus, or at least not badly. And those are all different sorts of hope, I realised. And in some cases, they're hopes that we feel are unlikely to be fully met. Maybe we are anxious about the way that our politicians or leaders are making decisions. And when we say we hope, what we mean is that we fear that they are not. Again, language can be quite subtle in its meaning. But I realised also that behind those sorts of things that we hope for, there are at least three different ways, or three different aspects of reality that we have to think about. The first is that we know, although we can't fully understand, and we certainly can't explain it, that there is an element of chance in all this. There's a chance. Some people seem to get the virus worse than others. Things that happen aren't fully explicable, they're not fully rational, it seems. There's an element of chance, and we hope that we won't be affected by the worst of things. We hope we won't get the virus too badly. And then there's the reality of the world that we know deep down the world does run according predominantly to rules. And there are consequences for things. If we do certain things, then there will be consequences. And we know that, with regard to huge things like global warming, and we know it with regard to little personal things like if we cross the road without looking. We live with the consequences of our actions. And as a population on the globe, we live with the consequences of our global actions or our inactions. And those are the rules by which we live. And we understand viruses, that viruses spread. They're contagious, and therefore if we gather among people and there's a contagious virus, it will spread among people. And when we hope that the virus will go away, we have to recognise the rules that it plays by. We can't just hope that somehow the virus will stop being contagious. And then there's that third group of things that affect the way the world is, and that's the decisions that are made by people who have power. We say we hope our politicians will make the right decisions. We say that because actually we know that the decisions they make affect the lives of us, they affect the lives of so many people. And it is true the world over, it's true throughout history, that the decisions that some people make affect the lives of others. It goes right back to Cain and Abel, and the vulnerable, the weaker, often are the ones who suffer. And human nature being what it is, self-interest being what it is, people make decisions for their own interest, for their own benefit, not always for the benefit of others. And we live in a world where that has been going on at the home level, at the community level, at national and international level. And those big decisions that people have made have affected how things are today, and they continue to do so. And so when we talk about hope, we talk about hope in a context of a world with these three quite distinct elements to it that all interact. That sense of chance, that element of chance, that recognition that there are, as it were, rules, and that a contagious virus remains contagious, and that the decisions that people make affect the lives of others. So if those three elements make up something of our reality that we live in and explain why maybe things are the way that they are, where is hope? What does hope mean? Well, we can hope in the scientists. We can hope that the scientists will help us understand the rules and they will come up with a way to end this virus. But then we've hoped in the scientists around global warming, but actually the issue is that we change our behaviour. We can hope in our politicians, but history teaches us that politicians certainly don't always get things right. In fact, often they don't get things right at all. And yes, we must pray for them, yes, we must hope, yes, we must support them, but it would be naive to think that somehow our politicians are going to make this all magically go away. And it would be equally naive to think that God has given us some sort of exemption for that just because we pray or just because we hold a certain belief we are exempt from the virus. There are some churches which seem to think that they are exempt or that somehow they won't be harmed, but I don't see the world like that, and I don't believe God is like that. Jesus came and lived in the real world, that world that had abuse of power, a world that had rules to it and where consequences happened. He came and lived in the world where, yes, we might say there's an element of chance. Some people are born with better opportunities than others. We don't quite know why certain people get ill, why some lives are more blighted than others. But the resurrection teaches us that God says that in all this he is with us, and the resurrection also teaches us that the promise of God's life, the promise of God's love, transcends even death. Again, we go back to the Easter story. The Easter story is rooted in reality. Jesus was killed by the abuse of power. Jesus died. His life ended in death. But death was not the end. God raised him to new life, and that is the promise that there is for us. And so our hope is secure in that reality of the resurrection. And it is in that hope that we can go about in today's circumstances, seeking to care, seeking to love, believing in those truths. Faith is believing that God is with us, and hope is knowing that God's promises are sure. It's not an easy word, and just by having hope doesn't mean things are going to get sorted out quickly. But in our service today, we reflected on that promise of the almond tree that was given to Jeremiah, the blossom, the first sign of spring. When I look back at the service that we produced, I realised we spent much more time thinking about the hope of the blossom than we did about the reality of the pot tilting from the north, the reality of the problems that we face. And I think that was actually right, because we need to think about the hope that God gives us. We know about the reality. T.S. Eliot said, humanity can only bear so much reality, and at the moment things are difficult. We know that. We need to lift our eyes and to find hope, to find strength, to encourage each other, to strengthen each other, to support each other. And where is prayer in all this? Prayer is drawing closer to the heart of God, seeking to understand God's sadness at what is happening in this tragedy, seeking to understand and hear God's voice and what he is calling us to do and to be, where we need to change, where we have gone wrong. And prayer in its mystery does work. I can't explain how. I wish I knew, and I certainly can't say because we pray for somebody they will necessarily get better. But we are called to pray in this situation. We are called to care and to help, and we can have hope, a sure hope because of the resurrection. God has been with us in this human life, in all its vagaries, in Jesus. And Jesus was raised from the dead as the first fruits and as the promise that God gives to us, that his life, his gift of life, his gift of love transcends death, and there is the promise of a new heaven and a new earth. And so at the heart of the Lord's Prayer there are two places where we pray with hope. Thy kingdom come, and deliver us from evil. They recognise the future promise and the current reality, and we pray that we will know God's kingdom and that we will be spared from the worst effects of evil. Lead us not into temptation, do not bring us to the time of trial is the other translation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.